It is my great pleasure to welcome Mr. Jamie Dimon, CEO of JP Morgan, to the Fuqua School of Business. And Mr. Dimon has been very gracious with his time to Fuqua. This is the third year in a row that he's spoken to Fuqua, and we're very grateful to have you here again. Now, Mr. Dimon has a very successful career in the financial service industry and has held senior executive positions in a number of leading U.S. companies. Such companies include Smith Barney, Citigroup, and Travelers before heading the turnaround at Bank One. Now, after JP Morgan's merger with Bank One in 2004, Mr. Dimon assumed the role of President and Chief Operating Officer before being promoted to CEO of January 1st of this year. Now, Mr. Dimon also serves on a number of boards of nonprofit organizations, including United Negro College Fund and Harvard Business School. Now, the format of the presentation today will be a fireside chat with Mr. Dimon and Deputy Dean Will Mitchell. So without further ado, please welcome Mr. Jamie Dimon.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
You're coming through. Jamie, thank you so much for coming, and let me add my welcome to Scott's. I mean, it's great having you here. You've been a highly effective leader within financial services. You're a great friend to Fuqua, great friend to Duke. You've contributed your daughter for 4 years, which I think is a brave thing to do.
Right. And maybe
Julie,
one,
are you
more.
here? Is your daughter here with you tonight?
She's going to be any second. She just dropped me off.
Hurrah. I was thinking about, when I was thinking about what we might want to talk about tonight, I thought we could, I have some questions. I know I would like to hear some thoughts from you, and I thought we would turn it over to my wonderful students to ask even better questions and get your insights. And I thought, when I was thinking about the questions, I thought I would go back a little bit in time to when you took over Bank One and then rolled up into JP Morgan Chase. And in particular, I guess I'm interested in two aspects of your leadership, and I'd like to go on to some of the strategic issues you face. But before we do that, I'd like to think about a bit about your leadership. And let me first ask sort of what you've learned, who you've learned from as a leader, and in turn, what aspects of your leadership style do you think are particular strengths? And on the other side, none of us are perfect as leaders. I'd be interested around what aspects you think of your leadership style create challenges.
Right. So first of all, I want to apologize for being late. I think it's a terrible thing. So I always tell people it should never happen. So I apologize. I think the first question, who have you learned from? I've learned from a lot of people, and you kind of learn by watching. You learn from your parents. You learn from your teachers. You learn from friends. I worked for a guy called Sandy Weil for a long time. He wasn't the mentoring type. It was kind of sink or swim. But you learn by watching and doing and just being around, smart, tough people. And I learned a lot from, but like a guy called Bob Lipp, who was my partner for years, who probably was a fabulous manager. Sandy Weil was not a fabulous manager, but Bob was disciplined, smart, went through all the numbers, always knew exactly what was going on around the company. I learned a lot from Bill Harrison, who's still the chairman of JP Morgan. Yeah. My wife would come back and say, "My God, can you be a little more like Bill?" I mean, I said, "What do you mean?" But Bill is a gentleman. He always is very mature in how he deals with things. He's certainly politer than I am when it comes to something. So I've kind of learned from all those people and from just reading history.
That's neat. When you've looked at history, who has struck you in particular as being
Abe Lincoln would be one. You look at the trials and tribulations he went through, and he always maintained his calm, fabulous sense of humor. Nelson Mandela. I mean, it still amazes me that someone could spend 27 years in jail and get out and be magnanimous to the people who jailed him. And had he not done that, maybe South Africa would have ended up in a civil war as opposed to, a free country today and had a peaceful transition. So, and there are lots of other historical figures I put in the same category. But you asked about strengths, weaknesses. I'll tell you, there are common weaknesses. The weaknesses you have, first of all, have a temper. And I would tell you it's a terrible thing to have. In fact, wherever I go, sometimes...
I see your daughter laughing.
Yeah. That's my daughter. Yeah. Yeah, I have a temper, and it's actually a terrible thing. It took me, until I was about 45 to realize how destructive it can be. And it's never justified. Okay, I actually look at Bill Harrison, he would never do it. And a lot of people always say to me, well, that was a well-aimed anger. It never was. It was just a welling up of anger over something. Sometimes you were right to be angry, but you end up doing the wrong thing, saying the wrong thing. You have to recorrect it all the time. It takes your eye off the ball. And so now if I feel it welling up in me, I try. I don't always succeed. To say, and I've actually the other day I said to someone, I feel myself getting really pissed off. I don't know why, but it's coming to me. So I'm going to leave the room, and when I figure out, I'm going to come back and tell you why. And I was very proud of myself. So
I love it. I love it.
So.
Let me follow up on the notion of leadership, and in particular, you've been very successful as a leader of change. And this is something that all of us are going to be faced with, and all of us need to do. And I think of, in particular, taking over Bank One at a time when you took over a bank that had been very successful, had a history of spectacular success, in fact, and was going through a very difficult time with the struggles with the acquisitions of First USA, struggles with integrating First Chicago MBD. And you took over a bank that was struggling somewhat, in reality turned it around, made very strong profits within a couple of years,
Right.
and then stepped into a new role where again you were taking on a leadership of change with JP Chase, where you'd put JP, before you came in, they'd put together two banks. After you came in, you added another 50%. I think if I've got it right, the bank in 5 years went through almost 3 times asset growth and more than 2 times employee growth.
Yeah.
So there's two major change efforts that in one case you clearly succeeded, in the other case you're clearly on the path to success. And I'd be very interested in hearing more from you about sort of your approach to leading change initiatives.
Right. So first of all, I think there are many types of good leaders, and it's not whether you're a good speaker or whether whether you can rally the troops or a great salesman or a great analyst. It's really this whole, I think it takes a lot of different types of skills, which everyone has in various ways. Some people sometimes say, is it your EQ or IQ? And I would tell you it's not IQ. You could be most people could be a very successful leader. There is a lot of EQ about, social skills and ability to get along with people and organize. It's not whether you're brilliant, it's whether you actually have clarity of thought. Can you decompose problems? Can you understand them and put them back together in a relevant way? I think it's your passion. It's how much do you want to be good, So it's not EQ or IQ, it's your passion, it's your character, it's your work ethic. Do you actually have the work ethic that can drive something? Bank One was much tougher than JP Morgan. I mean, not even close. Because at Bank One, when I walked into a boardroom. There was 22 board members. I knew 6 of them. They had hired me. I'd known that there was a big debate about who to hire. Some of them wanted the guy who had been there for a long time, because it was a steady pair of hands type thing, and a decent guy. I shook the hands of the people. I told them, I'm going to do the best I can, and hopefully when I come back to them, and I walked downstairs, I said to someone, I need a secretary, I need an office, to kind of meet the executive team. I hadn't met anyone, and it was one lonely thing, particularly that first 3 or 4 or 5 months. And what I do is basically just forget any preconceptions you have. Just dig into the people, the issues. Everyone I met, what do you do? How do you do it? Send me the stuff you read. How do you run your business? I was always taking people out for breakfast, lunch, dinner, searching out the good people in the company. And there's a lot, if you're ever in a situation like that, there's a lot of pressure, like to not do anything. The company's fragile, so don't pressure the management team. The board is fragile, so don't be careful with the board. Don't be, wherever you go, people want you to make commitments. Like the first day, someone said to me, we had this press conference, they said, well, Mr. Dimon, you're going to reaffirm the forecast of the company. And the acting CEO, who is no longer the CEO, said, absolutely. They said, what about you, Mr. Dimon? I said, absolutely not. I said, I don't know. When I know something, I'll let you know. And the biggest bullshit, folks, they've been practicing this for so long, they are really good at it. And they're the ones who line up at your door. This is how it's going, to help you get it done. You got to like Joe, and this is the core person, but they're often not. So there's a lot of deception going on in the place, and the company is doing terrible.